Welcome to the Mighty Emotions Podcast. I'm your host, Giselle. I'm a certified emotions coach, and I teach you how to respond better to your emotions so you can feel better in your life. My mission is to show you how to work with your emotions to become more emotionally resilient. Your emotions are not designed to overpower you, they're designed to empower you. On this podcast, I share what our emotions are, how to understand them and work with them, and the tools you need to reclaim your power and get unstuck from emotional pain so you can find fulfillment in your life again. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get into the episode. Hello, beautiful souls. How are you? How have you been dealing with life lately? I have been sharing about my struggles with sleep and my toddler not sleeping, and it seems to be working itself out, but it's definitely been challenging to function at my most optimal level because of that basic need not being met. So I've been really just trying to take care of myself, use my own medicine. I've been working through or working with fear a lot lately. And I'm just discovering more and more how amazing and powerful fear is. And I'm going to share about it at some point for sure. But it's just a wonderful emotion that I've really run from for a long time. And the more I sit with it and feel it and process it, the more wisdom I gain, the more peace I feel around it. Um, it's just really exciting. So I'm excited to share more about that with you when the time comes. Today, I want to talk about just generally what is leading you to feel powerless in your life, why you feel so out of control and powerless. And the reason is ultimately one I know very well because that was where I lived for a very long time. That was the state that I was in my life. Just feeling, like everything was happening to me all the time and there's just nothing I could do. It was just real helpless kind of feeling and real lacking of hope, real lacking of optimism. And it was just somewhere that I didn't know how to get out of. And now being where I am, I can share it, kind of the steps to get out of it. But today I just want to talk about what was the root cause of that feeling. And the root cause, when I really started to understand myself, revealed itself to me as being at war with myself. Just being at war with myself. I was reading a book on I don't even remember what it was about, to be honest. I've read so many self-help books. I don't even remember the book that it was. Um, but in it, I was reading about being a friend to yourself. And for whatever reason, that line really struck me and made me see that for so long, I was an enemy to myself. And that really manifested what that looked like in my life was just being at war with my emotions and being at war with how I was feeling all of the time. Resistance, 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 just being really upset about what I was feeling, not wanting to accept it, not wanting to lean into it, thinking something was wrong with me. And I see this all the time in our society. There's so many stories that we have, and there's so many people who are at war with themselves and they're missing out on life. They're missing out on their power to create beautiful lives. And there's a lot of layers to this. This isn't about blaming anyone for why they're there. It doesn't matter why we're there. What matters is that we become aware that we're there, right? We become aware of how we interact with ourselves. Now, you might be listening to this and say, Giselle, I know that I'm at war with myself. I know I have all these negative self-talk and I have all of these things. And the negative thoughts, for sure, we can be super aware of, right? But what is your relationship like to your feelings? What is your relationship like to how you feel? What is your relationship like to what emotions show up for you on a regular basis? And there's a lot, I have to say this. I don't think I've said this on the podcast yet, But this is a good time to say this. Your thoughts can create your emotions, but your thoughts aren't always creating your emotions. And I think that people think that they have more control over their emotions than they do. We do not have full control over our emotions or over what we feel. What we're feeling is an automatic, built in programming, a wiring, right? It's how we are hardwired, the same way our cells are wired to do certain things. And the oxygen in our body is wired to move it, like our lungs are designed to, pump oxygen. Like we are designed with these emotions, and it's an automatic experience that we have. It is not something that we are controlling, right? So while we can have a thought that generates an emotional response that makes us feel a certain way, I can have a memory and recall how I was feeling in that time, or I can kind of project how I want to feel in the future, but only if I've experienced feeling that way before, by the way. We can't create a feeling that we've never felt before. But like if I can absolutely do that with my mind, but my emotions do not come from me. Like I'm not making them, right? Their experiences, their signals, how I'm programmed, how I'm wired so that I can navigate life, so that I can take care of myself. And I think that we don't realize that our emotions are just our natural state of being. And we think that we are creating that emotion, or we focus a lot on our thoughts and our mind and our negative thoughts. And yes, those negative thoughts generate more and more emotion because those negative thoughts are an obstacle to us getting our needs met. And then that's the piece that isn't discussed, that isn't really looked at, that isn't really talked about, but that is the piece that's going to liberate you. Those negative thoughts are not just generating the emotion because you can create. Those thoughts are an obstacle. Again, if you haven't listened to my talk on needs, I highly suggest you go back and listen to that episode. There's 2 parts on it where I talk about in part 2 the obstacles that prevent us from getting our need met. And those thoughts are often that obstacle. And those thoughts are what we are constantly at war with. And we really, in society, collectively, right? We enmesh, we conflate feeling and emotion and thought as if they're all the same thing. And they're not. Your thoughts are not the same thing as your emotions. You have far more control over your thoughts than you have over your emotions. And even then, you don't have that much control over your thoughts because so much of it is generated from your subconscious. Like you're thinking about something without realizing that somewhere in your past, you were collecting that information that allows you to now produce that thought in the moment. So you don't actually have that much control over what's being generated within you. And that's okay. That doesn't make you powerless, right? That makes you a human. And what you do have control over is how you respond to that. And when we don't step into that role, when we don't take responsibility, when we don't own that ability, that is what leads us to feeling helpless and powerless. Because we are powerless over that thought being generated or over that emotion showing up, but we are powerful enough to decide how we respond to it. And often how we respond to it is by just going to war with it. Going to war with it. Like I said earlier, I'm working with fear right now. And fear has been an emotion that I have been going to war with for a really long time. And I understand it. I understand that it's good, but lately I've been diving even deeper into it. Like, why would we be programmed with this fear? What is that about? And learning to befriend it, learning to listen to it, learning to slow down and really pay attention and observe it. Observe how it feels in my body. Observe what I'm experiencing when this fear is showing up. Observe what my mind is doing. Because what our mind often does when we don't know how to work with our emotions, if you haven't been a client of mine and you haven't learned what each core emotion is sharing with you, then it's fine because no one's teaching it, right? But what we don't realize is that our minds are always looking to create meaning and looking to create stories and interpreting what's happening. And when we don't understand our emotion, we don't understand what we're feeling, right? Like, really, let me repeat this. When we don't understand what we're feeling, we don't know what we're feeling, our mind is going to look to create a reason that we're feeling the way that we're feeling. Our mind isn't going to say, oh, it's fear coming up. Oh, it's fear, right? When we don't know what fear feels like, when we don't know what sadness feels like, when we don't know what anger feels like, our mind isn't going to say, oh, this is fear or anger. Our mind is going to say, oh, this happened that is making you feel this way. Or, oh, this is what you need to focus on because that explains why you feel this way. This external thing or this external person or this story about you that you've been carrying for your whole life. Like our mind is just looking to give us certainty, just looking to make sense of things. And so when we begin to work with our emotions, we begin to program ourselves with the real meanings that are going to benefit us and serve us. Okay. And another thing that contributes to our war with our emotions is the messaging about emotions in our society. Like they are demonized. Like, oh, these things, they're so, they're burdens or they're, you don't want to feel, you shouldn't feel that way. You should do everything in your power to not feel that way. Become stoic. Just focus on your thoughts and create your thoughts. And that's exhausting. When our bodies are naturally creating and generating these emotions and these thoughts, and we're constantly fighting it and trying to use willpower to change it, rather than leaning in and recognizing that, oh, it's here for a reason. It's here to serve us. Like, okay, what do I need to do to work with this? Right? This constant battling it instead of trying to work with it and seeking to befriend it. When we befriend our emotions, we are able to befriend ourselves. We're not constantly at war with ourselves. We're not constantly making these stories and making these things mean something about us because we understand what they actually mean. We understand what they're actually saying to us. We understand what we actually need to do, right? Our emotions are not us. Like, let me be clear about that. My sadness is an experience that I have. It's a wiring that I'm programmed to experience when in certain conditions or certain circumstances. And by certain circumstances, I mean when a need is missing, not when something happens. Something happening doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to feel a certain way. But if I don't know how to work with my emotions, my mind is going to just pull whatever data is in my subconscious and try to find a reason. Try to make sense of what I'm feeling because I don't know what I'm feeling because I haven't spent the time to get familiar with it. And that is what sends us into the negative spiral and all of that. And again, I speak from experience that being in that place for so long in my life was exhausting. It was exhausting and it prevented me from fully embracing life and living life. It kept me boxed in a way. It kept me trapped from really discovering who I am and who I am underneath all the experiences that I've gone through and who I am today despite all the things that I've gone through. We can really keep ourselves trapped and we can really keep ourselves limited from experiencing amazing things because we're just too busy at war with ourselves. We're too busy at war with our thoughts and our feelings. We're too busy fighting and resisting and draining our energy in this way. It doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve anybody because within each of us is a gift that the world needs in some capacity that we can't tap into and we can't express because we're so drained from fighting ourselves. So I really want you to just reflect on whether or not you're fighting yourself right now and whether or not you're being a friend to yourself right now, right? I mean, really a friend, caring and nurturing and compassionate. Like, are you being a friend to yourself right now? And if you're not, that's okay. That awareness is the first step to saying, okay, well, what do I want? Do I want to stay here, or do I want to learn how to be a friend to myself, how to nurture myself, how to take care of myself, how to understand what's showing up so that my mind doesn't just go into this strange fantasy mode where it just creates these stories based on whatever is in my subconscious that I've collected along the way, right? We take back control because we control how we respond to those things when they show up, and we train our nervous systems, we train our minds, we train ourselves to acknowledge it, manage it in a healthy way, right? And honestly, I can tell you from my work that I'm doing with emotions in my own life and with my clients that our emotions are so supportive and helpful. They're so supportive, and I would not be able to do any of the things that I do today if I was still spending all my time fighting how I was feeling. And listening to my emotions has been the most liberating experience, right? So with that, I really hope that you are kind to yourself today. Just even if it's for the next hour, just say, I'm going to be a friend to myself for the next hour, for the next 10 minutes. Start small, right? When I started recovery, it was just for this minute, just for this minute, just for this half hour, just for this hour. Just build incrementally. And if you really want to know more about your emotions and how to understand them, then head to mightyemotions.com and sign up, join my free membership. It's free. You just sign up, and there's a lot of resources in there to help you begin to work with your emotions, begin to befriend yourself, begin to nurture yourself and honor yourself. And so that you can get your vitality back, you can get your energy back, you can reconnect to who you really are underneath this all. The person that's trying to come through that can't because you're too busy bickering with how you feel. You're too busy suppressing it or running from it or avoiding it. You can have so much more life when you learn to understand your emotions. And that is what I'm here to help you do. So head over to mightyemotions.com, check out the free resources. And if there's anything that you're struggling with specifically, if there's anything that you took from this episode and you kind of want me to go deeper on, send me a message. You can DM me in the community or leave a comment, and I'm happy to do that for you, right? Because I want you to find this freedom, to have this, be liberated from the heaviness of carrying these emotions all the time and the exhaustion of fighting them all the time. You're a human being. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And I want you to discover the power you have to create an amazing, fulfilling, beautiful life. So with that, thank you for listening to another episode. I will see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean so much if you could subscribe, leave a review, share with your friends and family, and let me know what you think by going to my Instagram at mighty_emotions and connecting with me and letting me know what you loved about today's episode. It really means a lot that you support this podcast, and I love coming to you each week with a new episode. So be sure to subscribe, let me know what you think, and take care of yourself.